Today we're going to talk about building web services for Drupal. That's REST and SOAP APIs built out using the Drupal content management system. And I think you'll find that Drupal is really, really good at that task, and it's an extreme pleasure to work with.
I'm Matt Korostoff. I'm a web developer. I work for Blink Reaction in New Jersey. We're an enterprise shop. We do corporate stuff. I've worked through Blink Reaction for NBC, Warner, Universal, Pfizer, that sort of thing. So generally working on projects that need to scale to a very large degree, and importantly, and this is how I came to love Drupal Web Services, are spread out across a wide variety of platforms. So when we build a Drupal site, there is almost always, when you're working with a big enough brand, there's almost always an accompanying iPhone app or some sort of aggregator site that is owned by the main company. So this is something that I've had a great deal of experience with over the past couple of years, and I'm going to share those experiences today. And if you're looking for Drupal work, we are hiring aggressively, and I'm a big fan of the work environment. So see me after if that's something that interests you. We're going to talk about the Drupal REST server, how to add authentication to the Drupal REST server, and I'm going to touch briefly at the end. This is a slightly more immature project, but the Drupal SOAP server. So before I actually get into the technical details, hello, show of hands, who here knows what a web service is? Okay. Who here has built a web service? Okay. And we can have a maximum of one yes on this. Who here has built a web service in Drupal? Okay, great. So very basically, a web service is a connection between two computer programs that travels over the web. It's common to do this connection in XML. More modern web services tend to use JSON. There's a lot of different formats that this can take. So the Drupal that we know and love communicates in HTML. Drupal does pretty much one thing, depending on how you define the word thing. It gets data out of a database and turns it into HTML and shows it to the user. Also gets data out of HTML forms and puts it into a database. It is an application layer that serves as a bridge between an HTML website and usually a MySQL database. The only reason for that is that HTML happens to be the language of the browser. Not everything speaks HTML. Some things speak JSON. So if you want to get data out of Drupal in not a human-readable visual format, but in a machine-readable data document, a web service is what allows you to do that. So if you want to make Drupal the backend to your iOS app, your Android app, or some other non-Drupal web property, a web service is the way to make that happen. So I'm going to give you some pretty hands-on tutorials of how Drupal handles that whole paradigm. But before I actually get to the code samples, I want to say that web services is I think my favorite part of web development. The part of web development that I don't really care for is the pixel mechanic phase. Like I enjoy front end development, but this is off by 7 pixels to the right. Like in IE8 quirks mode, like this thing over. Like I like to deal with interesting data problems of scalability and robustness. If you've ever heard the expression, the first 90% of coding takes 90% of the time, the last 10% takes the other 90% of the time. That 90% is very frustrating for me, and web services just allow you to totally blow past that. Web services like bring all the fun back to web development, because the product that you're ultimately producing is an objective, testable, like obvious data document. And the other thing that is great about web services is that it is a huge, enormous, untapped business opportunity. Every time an iOS shop books a deal to build an iOS app, you should be making money on the Drupal side. Virtually every mobile app, and mobile apps are just one of the many clients that consume web services. Virtually every mobile app is going to require a web service, and whatever comes after iOS and Android, those are going to require web services too. That's a very persistent paradigm in web communications. And if you think about some of the most sort of successful mobile apps, like the actual physical app that you download on your phone is like really nothing. Like Snapchat? Have you ever installed Snapchat? It's nothing. It's a camera send. Like the actual work that took talent and skill to produce is the web service that allows Snapchat to upload images to the web and transfer them quickly in a performant and supposedly secure way to other users. And that's the skill that we all have. So mobile app development it's a $10 billion industry. Some stats about this on the next slide. Mobile app development is a $10 billion industry, and you today, right now, have the skills in-house to go and knock on the door of any iOS shop and sell them your services. And as far as I know, no one's really doing that in the Drupal world yet. But I think we should, and in fact I think in short time we're going to need to, because the web is less and less in the internet is less and less in the browser, and more dependent on data documents talking in a device agnostic way amongst each other. If we believe that the Internet of Things is a reality, Drupal's place in the future of the internet is producing web services. So for the first set of web service formatting that I want to talk about is the REST standard. Now, a word about words here. There are, if you laughed at this, I probably don't need to say any more. There are a lot of very strong opinions about what constitutes REST and what strategies for transferring data conforms to RESTful constraints. I'm not really going to pay any attention to that. I'm basically going to use the word REST here to mean a data document transferred over HTTP that is not SOAP and not XML RPC. The only thing I'm really going to pay attention to is, does it work, does it scale? Some of this might not be formally within the confines of REST, but I think it remains useful. So there's basically three modules in Drupal that compete for various slices of the web service pie. By far the easiest to use, the one that will be most familiar to you if you've worked with Drupal extensively in the past, is called Views Datasource. And Views Datasource is, as the name implies, controlled through the Views UI, and it's a plugin to Views that allows you to create data documents, XML and JSON, through the normal click and drag interface that you're familiar with. Very easy to use, very easy to set up. The downside is that it's very hard to alter with code, something that much harder than a normal view, which like all the views hooks still apply, but they apply in weird, unexpected ways, and like the actual turning the document into JSON is done in a template file in a very just trust me on this. If you need anything other than out of the box functionality from Views Datasource, like you shouldn't be using Views Datasource. And the other thing that is difficult about using Views Datasource is that it is innately a read-only technology. You cannot create with Views Datasource a web service which receives inputs from the user, which in my experience has excluded Views Datasource as a possibility for most web service products that I've produced. That said, for a small, simple, limited use case, really excellent solution. Has all the bells and whistles that you would expect from a Views plugin, and let me give you a demonstration of that right now. Okay, this is just a little demo site that this is every new iOS app that comes out. Their slogan, "Your world delivered." Like the slogan of Discus is, I swear to God, a community of communities. It's just a website where I post my kitten pictures. Don't judge; it's what I like. And I previously, before this, of course, installed Views Datasource. Views Datasource comes with two sub-modules, one called Views JSON and one called Views XML. I think you can intuit what they do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new view. And what you get when you install Views JSON or Views XML is this option right here. Instead of creating an unformatted list, you can create a JSON document. And you can see already what we have here is a list of all content on the site in a JSON document. What's really nice about Views JSON is you get a lot of customizability in the UI out of the box. So I want my top level root object to be cats, plural, and each individual item in the response will be one cat. And I want to filter by type. All of my articles are cat articles. So filter by article. And we can see this is already starting to be like a sort of rational document that if you wanted to serve up just a list of the most recent article titles on your site, got to save it before you can view it. And I already have a web service spun up in about 10 seconds. Now, as you would expect from Views, this is one thing I really like. None of these formatter options mean anything other than image style. Because what Views JSON is actually going to do is it's actually intelligent enough to like descend down into the image entity and like pull out the full real world URL. And you'll see why that's hard when I actually do some custom services in a minute. And we get the ability to add relationships. And these labels here, the label that I just produced is actually going to become the like object key in the ultimate endpoint that I produce. You can rewrite fields. Group by is a little weird, but it works mostly. So if you have an incredibly simple need just to produce basically like an RSS feed with like customized field names. Views Datasource is the solution for you. If you need anything more complex than this, if you saw this and did not go, yes, that is exactly the thing that I need, and I need no additional things, just forget Views Datasource. It's not the thing you need. And I'm going to show you better things.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to expose filters in Views Datasource?
Yes. Well, you're able to take arguments in the URL. You're not able to have like an HTML drop-down filter, but yeah, it works the exact same way as filters in a regular, as arguments in a regular view. Next module that I want to tell you about is called RESTful Web Services, or RestWS. I include this. There would really be no reason in the real world to ever actually use this module, and the reason I say that is it's a good module. Don't get me wrong; it works very well. It's stable and it's easy to use. But the one I'm going to show you next, which is the services module, provides every feature of the RESTful Web Services module in the exact same way, plus a bunch more awesome features. So there's no real reason to use this. I include it here because it is blindingly simple to set up. In fact, there is no UI when you set up this module. You download it, you enable it, and then you have all your services, which is both a blessing and a curse because sometimes you need configuration. And I also include it because the maintainer of this module is also the author of the REST module in Drupal 8. So the paradigm that I'll show you that this module presents is very close to what you're going to encounter in Drupal 8, if not identical. And of course, the big advantage that this has over Views Datasource is that you can put data back in. You can use this endpoint to create nodes in Drupal. There's close to no documentation in this, so pay close attention because what I'm going to tell you is the result of just me refreshing the page over and over and over and trying a million different things and eventually figuring it out. It's like a README file. That's about as much as you're going to get. All the online documentation is out of date and doesn't make sense. And if you want to customize it with, if you want to add your own custom thing like we just did, it's really hard. It can be done, but the API for creating new services with the RESTful Web Services module is really hard.
Is that the same in Drupal 8 then as well?
I don't know what the API is like for creating new endpoints in Drupal 8. I'm gonna guess yes, it's the same, and yes, it's hard. Though I would also expect the services module, which is coming up next, to have a D8 port. So I've previously downloaded and enabled the RestWS module. So here's an article represented as HTML. If you want that same article as JSON, there it is. XML. And it also does RDF, which is essentially another style of XML. The RESTful Web Services module also accepts query parameters. So for instance, if I go to just node.json, I'll get a list of all of my nodes. I think it actually starts paging after 100 nodes. But if I want just 5, I can do limit 5. And if I want stub mode, I just want node IDs, do full equals 0. And this is probably the most useful feature here. So I've reused a lot of node titles here. And you can any field that is available in your node can be used to filter on. So there's actually a number of nodes with this exact same title, and if I want to get all those nodes, hello, here they are. There's 3 nodes with that title. One other thing that I like a lot about RestWS that is not present in any of these other modules, as far as I know, is it gives you this sort of iOS developers love this. They go crazy for these sort of index properties at the beginning of your service. Tell you, I'm not quite sure why or what it is about the language that makes this useful to them, but it tells you like how many results are in this document total. The other really useful thing about any questions about any of this so far?
I don't know. You might be getting to this, but how do you actually call the JSON object you want with the filters, like from like a custom module? Like if you wanted to get a hold of that data, how do you actually do it from a custom module? Okay,
so you would generally the only time that you would do that is if you were consuming this REST endpoint from like another Drupal site, like Drupal site A produces this JSON document, and Drupal site.
So just like in PHP, how would you call that?
Yeah, so you can use PHP curl function, or in Drupal you can use Drupal HTTP request, or you can use a very big mature project that I'm not going to get too much into called Feeds. Feeds is sort of the opposite of services. Like services produces data documents, Feeds ingests data documents. So that would be the basic strategy. Any other questions? Okay. The other thing that's really great and useful about RestWS, and this paradigm that I'm about to describe is identical exactly to the way it's handled in the services module, which is coming up next. So this applies perfectly to both systems. You automatically have authentication available, which is not. You can restrict the output of Views Datasource by user role. RestWS takes it a step further in that it provides like the normal Drupal session handling for devices that don't handle. I'll just show you, but to make a long story short, RestWS provides a very secure way of allowing people to log in and allowing people to author content over a web service securely. So here I am in Postman. This is a REST client. And the way I signal, there's another way other than adding that file extension to signal the format you want. You can also use the accept header. Sometimes you can use the content type header, but that's a little more complicated how that works. So if I do accept application JSON, I get JSON. If I do is application XML or text XML? Yeah, if I do accept XML, then it replies in XML. The way you tell the RestWS module that you want to author content is by changing the HTTP verb. So instead of the same as like submitting a form, instead of sending a GET request, you're going to send a POST request. This is sort of a convention in REST. GET means retrieve, CRUD, create, retrieve, update, delete. GET means retrieve. POST means create. Put means update, and delete means delete. They should have just named CRUD, the actual HTTP verbs, but that's not the world we live in. So if you want to author in RestWS. I'm already logged in, so I don't need to call the user login service. That would be like /user/login, and then that's my password for every site. So you would send this request and it would log you in. Because I'm using a browser-based REST client, I already have a session that is persistent from when I logged in the web. So I don't need to do that. What I do need to do is get what's called a CSRF token. So a CSRF stands for cross-site request forgery. Make a long story short. It's an additional value that is parallel and has a one-to-one relationship with your session cookie that is used to prevent, like, you could send someone a link that's like I could bury that in like an image source, and someone looks at my image, and then unbeknownst to them, they sent me $1,000. So the CSRF token is to prevent that. It's an additional value that the browser will not automatically send as it does with the cookie. So in order to get that value, I need to send a post request. And I'm given this. And this took me a while to figure out. And this, by the way, is true in RestWS, and it's true in the services module. In both cases, you need this value. And in both cases, you give it back to Drupal in the following way. You just add a header. And now if I want to author content, I think I need a content type header, but I'm not sure. So I want to author content. This part of the URL is the entity that I'm authoring, and then I also need a JSON document like this. I'm going to specify a title and a type, and that's all I need to do in order to. Oh, not found. Because and what I get back is the ID of the content that I just created, which is this is great. This is so, like, I can just create like a bunch of them. And this is kind of the main use case if you're producing web services in a professional setting, is that like an iPhone app is going to initiate it's going to log in through Drupal using the user login method, and it's going to like upload your Instagram photo using like a create photo node method. And you can see if we go over here to content, here's the 3 articles that I just created. Of course, it's not like populated usefully with any of the fields. Like you'd have to specify each field, and so on. And it can get a little complicated when you're working with referenced entities like images, but there's handling for all of that. I'm not sure I have time to actually go over entity referencing in detail. But it can be done. So that's the basic paradigm. That's RestWS, and that paradigm is continued in the services module. And that's probably 80 to 90%. Yeah.
But how did you get the token, the X?
Great question. So that is slightly different between RestWS and the services module, which is coming up next. In RestWS, after login, you call it. This is a static URL. This is the same for every Drupal site using RestWS. This URL in the services module, it's going to be user/token, but it's the same thing. It replies in the same way. Any questions about anything that I've gone over before I move on to the services module? Okay, services is by far the best Drupal module for producing web services. Everything you just saw from RestWS works the exact same way. All of that is present in the services module. The really awesome additions that they make is there is a fantastic API for creating your own custom web services and altering the web services that Drupal provides out of the box. And with a single sort of like drop down, and this I'll show you this at the end. I hope we have time for it. You can change all of your REST methods. All the same code will instantly become like a SOAP method, and it's just like my mind explodes when I think about this. So the SOAP project, by the way, is a little more immature than the REST project. And I'm told it struggles with authentication. I've never used it in production, but it seemingly works pretty well. The only downside to the services module is it takes a little bit of time to set up. So when you install the services module, and the accompanying module that you're really going to want is the services entity module, which is what really makes this a complete package. When you install the services module, you get this new display here in the structure section, services. And I've set some services up previously. I'll show you how you add one. This actually took me a while to figure out. And I have 3 existing ones, so we'll call it V3, or I'm sorry, V4. And people complain about services being hard to set up. It's done. That was me setting up services. Actually, there's one more part. Not everything is automatically enabled, so you gotta come in here and enable everything. So that service that we just created, it's going to be available at API. So this took me a while to understand too. API/v4, which is the URL we chose, / this thing in bold, / any of these sub things. So if I want to list all of the nodes using the services module, send a GET request. Oh, actually, index is implied if you have no argument. So defaults to XML. I can also change it to JSON. I can also change it to something called it's either Ben code or Bem code. Maybe I didn't enable it, but I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's a format that's available. Also, this is pretty cool. You format a serialized PHP, which is one pretty nice strategy for linking two Drupal sites together. As if you ever sort of mess around with your MySQL database. This is how generally large like objects are stored in the Drupal database. So all of the concepts that we looked at in RestWS are more or less exactly the same here. The thing that's new and exciting in the services module is a really easy ability to add custom services that you create yourself. So when you log in with the services module, switch back to V1. Oops, got a post. This is something you'll encounter a lot. My token is the wrong token because it's from a different module. So I'll call user token, get a new one. And I'll call System Connect. System Connect it's the same. You get the same response from System Connect as you do from login. So it's like your user account data, and you can see here my user does not have a picture set. Services module provides a great API for altering responses. So if I want to do something, for instance, like set a default picture, like it's 2 lines, 3 if you count the like trailing semicolon. You can see there, I've done that really easily. The other really like killer feature about the services module that like I could almost not run my business without, or I don't run the business, but I could almost not conduct my business without, is the ability to quickly and easily add your own like totally custom bespoke services. So this works a lot like hook menu. Instead of hook menu, it's hook services resources. And I don't want to take any arguments yet. Comment that out. Oh no! Oh, again. Maybe I'll just uncomment everything. Okay. And this syntax also took me a while to figure out, even though it's pretty well documented. I was just like kind of being blind to it. The syntax is return. This is the name of your resource. So this is sort of equivalent to like node on that screen that we saw previously, and then all of your operations. So now that I've added my hello world service, if I come back here to, this is the one that I created earlier. Here's the service that I just defined. It's really simple to do. Like this args part, don't worry about. I think you can kind of intuit what that does. It's to take user inputs and do something with them on the Drupal side. But the basic idea here is you define a function, and anything that function returns is what your service returns. So got to use get. as XML, and this custom service that I just created is also available to me in JSON, and it's, I believe, is also available to me in PHP as a serialized array. I'm going to skip over accepting arguments in the service because I don't think I'm going to have time for it. But one other thing to note, I returned a string here. You can also return an array, and the array will be encoded as a JSON object or as an XML document, as the headers may warrant, and of course as a PHP serialized array again, if that's what your particular requirement set calls for. And actually, let's do arguments. Clear cache. I'm defaulting the argument to the word world. If I pass in my name, my response is hello, Matt. And of course, you can take those user inputs, sanitize them, and write them to the database in any number of interesting and creative ways. So you can start to get really elaborate and creative with the inputs that you're taking through the services module and with the outputs that you're giving. Basically anything that was previously possible with hook menu becomes possible very quickly and very easily as a data document through the services module. So one actually relatively trivial example is I've created this dashboard, and the thing to realize about this dashboard, and this is where RestWS really fails you, is that everything in here is like a different kind of thing. This is an embedded node. This is a view that returns nodes. This is a view that returns users. This is a view that returns a node queue. It's all different kinds of data types, and RestWS is very strict about what it will consider as a resource. This is where the Batman slapping Robin in the beginning, it wouldn't be restful if you were allowed to return a node queue. Well, okay, but I need to. And the services module lets you do that pretty easily. So I've created here a method called dashboard. Obviously, this spacing is just to let you see what the different parts are. And you get this with the services entity module. You get this helper class called services entity resource controller clean that will you know how when you load a node, each field is like field underscore field name, then und, and then 0, and then your value. It just get rid of all that and make if you have a field called name, your service response will be just name : and then the actual name value. So that's a real lifesaver, and that's just available immediately as soon as you install services entity. So I load the about node. I do a query to get the most recent users, the same as we saw in the dashboard. I load my node queue, and this last part is a little more complicated. But I load and do a little post processing on all the articles tagged with hot. This is all equivalent logic to what we saw, and this is a panel page. And now if we hit, actually, let's do it over here. If we hit this endpoint, we can see I've actually pretty trivially created a data document that is an exact representation, and in fact, at like a not an identical URL, but a mapped URL. It's the same one that the HTML dashboard lives on, just prefixed by. So here's my about. Here's my most recent users. Here's my affiliate links, and here's my my hot right now. I don't have time to show you SOAP, but the basic thing to understand is this dashboard method will also be available as a SOAP method automatically. You won't have to do any configuration to get that available to you, really. Untold authentication isn't really working well with SOAP, so it might require some custom jiggering if you want to do it in production. Same is true of XML RPC. If you want to spin up an XML RPC endpoint instead of a REST endpoint, it's completely trivial to do. It's literally, I'll show you how trivial this is to do. Oh, now I have a SOAP. I built a SOAP server. Like, that makes my whole brain explode, the fact that I'm able to do that. If you ever like built a SOAP server without this sort of tool, you know that it can be a big bear to try and tackle. So this has been a godsend in a number of different ways on a number of different projects. Don't have time for SOAP. That's all I have. Thank you very much. These slides will be online, and you can click these links for some really in-depth tutorial on building your own services. Thank you very much. That's all.